Nice to see you again on my channel. Let's dive into the new story and try to resolve it together in the comments below after watching this video. Get comfortable and let's begin. This story is about a young man who experienced a brutal betrayal. His partner engaged in multiple affairs with 2 or more men and became pregnant. I also often hear, "My wife or girlfriend cheated on me, and now we're back together and happy." It's absurd because the relationship usually deteriorates after such a betrayal, but it's everyone's choice. Now, let's move on to the story. It will be told by a woman, so enjoy and feel free to share your thoughts. One September morning, I cheated on my amazing husband. I will use fictitious names so as not to reveal our identity. My husband, Louis, 43, and I, Jonah, 38, have been married for 19 years and have 4 children, 2 of whom are almost grown. We all live in a small town. So, my husband works in a branch of a large company, and I work in a local bar, but not as a waitress or a server. I am the manager. My husband has been working for his company for 24 years and earns very well, earning more than 6 figures. Just like my husband, after 2020 during the COVID, the bar closed. I would like to be independent, but one way or another, I have to live on my husband's income. For the first few weeks, I was fine with everything, but like everyone else, I started to get nervous because I was confined to isolation, and the inability to go out started to drive me crazy. As soon as the establishment started to partially reopen, I started going to the local restaurants where we lived to kill time. I would go to the restaurant in the afternoon and spend the whole evening there, and then return home in time for my husband not to notice. I had such a good routine, and it was fun. One day, I went to a popular restaurant that I had never been to before. I met my neighbor there and went over to say hello. Tom was upset, and so was I because he had lost his job and was living on a subsidy from the state for disability. We had such a good time that after a few weeks, we started meeting more often to kill time and clear our heads. One day, Tom came to our house and I didn't hear him come in. I was in the bedroom and he came up unnoticed. I was only in my underwear and nightgown and he hugged me. I froze and at first, I pushed him away, but then I thought, why not, and I approached him. He asked if I was sure, and I said I was absolutely sure. He pushed me on the bed and we started having sex. It was so wonderful that I didn't realize what I had done. Then he quickly got up and left, and I sat there not knowing what to do with myself. I called Louis and wanted to tell him everything, but I only told him about my day, not about Tom. That's when the secret started to emerge. Now I know that this was the moment when I officially started cheating on my husband. I'm crying as I write this. I feel so stupid and selfish. The next day, we met Tom at a restaurant and after lunch, we went home. On the way, we turned into the woods and slept together again. I was disgusted. I ended up in the big back seat of his truck where we spent the next hour with each other. I am so ashamed and disgusted that I am writing this. After we finished, Tom wanted me to go back to the restaurant with him, but I said no. I asked him to take me home. He gave me a ride, but I didn't hug him, not even in a friendly way. I wanted to hear Louis' voice, so I called him and we talked again. I wanted to tell him everything, but again, I was scared. I took the longest bath I had ever taken to wash away the shame. I cooked Louis his favorite meal wearing his favorite dress, but after dinner, I came to the point where I couldn't sleep with my husband anymore. He was tired after work, so he didn't pay much attention to it, but I knew that something unusual had happened to me. Because of what I cooked and wore, he would get something very special for dessert. I've always done it with pleasure, and I love him even more now. I love him more than ever before, but with Tom, I can be different, and I like that. I'm confused and don't know what to do. It's all just so crazy. For the next few weeks, everything was going great, and I thought I had put the horrible mistake I made with Tom in the past. Then one day, Louis sent me a text that he was leaving town for work for a few days and asked me not to cook anything. I texted him to call me when he was free. For some reason, I decided to call Tom, and he came to me right away. We slept together again, and we were lying in bed without worrying when someone came into the house. We were confused, and a minute later, we saw Louis. He had caught us. I started crying and told him that I could explain that it was just a fling, that it was a mistake, and that I was sorry, but he didn't listen to me. He threw Tom out of the house, and I was crying. But eventually, I gathered the strength to stop crying and raised my head. Louis told me that he wanted me to leave. I begged him not to, but he insisted, and I told him I didn't want to leave our house or go away from him. He said that if I didn't leave, he would leave alone, and the next time I wouldn't hear from him at all. He added that the next time I would hear from him would be through a lawyer, since it was my fault. I didn't want him to leave the house, so I asked him, if I leave, where do you want me to go? He replied that he didn't care where I went, he just wanted to be away from me. I went and stayed with one of my friends from work. She became a good friend and a great confidant. We stayed up almost all night. We talked about what I had done, and she helped me a lot because, unfortunately, she had had a lot of similar experiences. The next day, I called my husband. We talked briefly and agreed to meet at our house at 6 o'clock. When I arrived, Louis was not alone, but with his brother. I asked if we could meet alone, but he insisted that he wanted him to be with us. He insisted on being present as a witness. I told him that I would never do anything to hurt him, to which he just looked at me with an angry look. My husband continued to tell me that he was divorcing me and had already hired a lawyer, and that I should do the same. I started crying again and almost fainted. He said that we could live in the house together for now as neighbors, not as husband and wife. I begged him, but he was hard-headed and unyielding. He then told me that he wanted me to find a place to stay for the next week because he needed to clear his mind and didn't want me around. He then went on to tell me that he had met the children before and told them everything. I asked him why he told them without me. He said that they should know the reason why we are getting a divorce. I told him that we are not getting a divorce and I will not sign anything. I said that we can fix everything and that I love him more than life itself. He said that he had had enough. I would like to pause here and say that a lot of time will pass and I will be able to return to Louis and we will have a strong family again. But there is one detail: in a few years, I will betray him again, but this time it will be a completely senseless and impulsive act that I will not forgive myself for the rest of my life. First, I want to tell you the great news. Louis and I are still married, and this is great news for you, but not for Louis, because this was not the last betrayal. I'm going to tell you about what happened next and then about the moment when everything got better and how I made another mistake. I don't want to go into the details of what we went through so that my husband could trust me again, but it was not an easy road. I'm glad we made it through, although I will reveal some details. I now have an ongoing one-sided open relationship with Louis in which I do not demand anything from him. Since I only had sex with Tom a few times, I told Louis that I only had 2. He agreed to live together and possibly build a relationship. How are things going with us? Roommates where both sides love each other, but on one side, Louis doesn't really love the other. I won't say hate, because according to Louis, he doesn't hate me, he just doesn't love me the way he used to since the affair. He comes home late, doesn't spend time with me, and doesn't let me do anything for him. He doesn't even eat anything I cook. In fact, he doesn't eat anything out of the open because he doesn't trust me. This is just crazy talk. I would never do anything bad to him. I love him more than myself, more than life. He is my world, but he cannot forgive me for my stupid mistake. I made one mistake in 25 years, and he wants to throw me away like a candy wrapper. I say this now because as I am overwhelmed with emotions, I just want my husband to come back to me, and we could live like we used to. I asked for intimacy, but there was none. No kisses, no hugs, no snuggles, and we sleep in different rooms. This went on for almost 6 months, but one night in the winter, he came home and behaved differently. We had dinner together, and for the first time, he let me get closer to him, and we had sex, but with a condom. There was no hugging or kissing, just sex. After he finished, he just went to his room, leaving me alone in the guest room. No kiss, no thank you, baby, nothing. But I realized that this was the first step, and there was still a lot of work to be done, and we would definitely make it. He is my husband and only mine, and I will do everything to keep it that way. That's all I have at the moment. I know some of you will think I'm crazy, but my husband is my world, and I'm willing to sacrifice it for him to be my husband. Some more time passed, Lewis began to warm up to me, and we gradually returned to our old life. I was very happy. We were no longer like roommates. We were a couple, or better yet, a team, just like before. Our sexual relationship became more fulfilling. We could discuss more things to get even more pleasure from each other. Everything was incredible, as if we were in our 20s again and had our whole life ahead of us. But it didn't last that long. More precisely, it still lasts in Lewis's world, but not in mine. More than 6 months have passed, and yesterday I told Lewis that I was pregnant. He was incredibly happy, but he doesn't know the horrible details, and I'm definitely not going to tell him because it was a mistake, and I don't want to lose him again. But I want to share with you that exactly a month ago, I was vacationing with Lewis and our friends in Miami. We were having a really good time, and one night we decided to spend the last night separately. The women's group was resting separately from the men, and the men were resting separately from us. It was a terrible day, but I only realized it in the morning. My friends and I decided to go to a nightclub on the coast where two young guys started flirting with us very persistently. There were 5 of us girls. We didn't feel threatened or uncomfortable, so we just talked to them and had fun. Around 9, we got ready to go home, but at the bus stop, I realized that I had forgotten my purse and told the girls to go without me and that I would return alone. One of my friends offered to accompany me, but I realized that it was not very convenient and refused. I went back to the bar, went to the place where we were sitting, and there were these 2 guys. I asked if they had seen my purse, and they said they had given it to the bar, and one of them said he would go get it, and I would wait here for now. 5 minutes passed, he still wasn't there, and his friend offered me a drink. I refused, but he insisted, and I drank a little cocktail from the glass. It was a fatal mistake that I would only learn about tomorrow. After that, I don't remember much except that I woke up on the beach. I was naked, had a huge headache, and when I put my hand down to my flower, I realized that I had the juice inside. And everything was incredible, as if we were in our 20s again and had our whole life ahead of us, but it didn't last that long. More precisely, it still lasts in Lewis's world, but not in mine. More than 6 months have passed, and yesterday I told Lewis that I was pregnant. He was incredibly happy, but he doesn't know the horrible details, and I'm definitely not going to tell him because it was a mistake, and I don't want to lose him again. But I want to share with you that exactly a month ago, I was vacationing with Lewis and our friends in Miami. We were having a really good time, and one night we decided to spend the last night separately. The women's group was resting separately from the men, and the men were resting separately from us. It was a terrible day, but I only realized it in the morning. My friends and I decided to go to a nightclub on the coast where 2 young guys started flirting with us very persistently. There were 5 of us girls, and we didn't feel threatened or uncomfortable, so we just talked to them and had fun. Around 9, we got ready to go home, but at the bus stop, I realized that I had forgotten my purse and told the girls to go without me and that I would return alone. One of my friends offered to accompany me, but I realized that it was not very convenient and refused. I went back to the bar, went to the place where we were sitting, and there were these 2 guys. I asked if they had seen my purse, and they said they had given it to the bar, and one of them said he would go get it, and I would wait here for now. 5 minutes passed, he still wasn't there, and his friend offered me a drink. I refused, but he insisted, and I drank a little cocktail from the glass. It was a fatal mistake that I would only learn about tomorrow. After that, I don't remember much, except that I woke up on the beach. I was naked, had a huge headache, and when I realized that I had their juice inside, they took advantage of my helplessness. I couldn't report it to the police as it would have ruined my life for sure, and I couldn't tell Lewis after everything that had happened before. I was saved by the fact that I came home, and there was no one there. I went to the bathroom and sat there for an hour, crying. Then I went to the pharmacy, bought some birth control pills, and took them, but given my pregnancy, they didn't work. In the morning, Lewis came, his friends brought him. He was sick after an alcoholic party, and I just took care of him all day. He was happy that everything was okay, that there was someone to take care of him, and I was broken inside, and I didn't know what to do. I'm with Lewis. I'm expecting a child who is not his, and I'm in a situation where I lied again. I can't tell him the truth because it's tantamount to losing him again. The secret should be with me alone if I want to save my marriage. I love my husband more than anything in the world, and I can't lose him. I told you this, and I am very grateful that you listened to me. I feel a little bit better, and I hope that I will continue to be worthy of my husband, who definitely deserves a better woman than me. Guys, thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate that you have devoted your time to my work, specifically on this channel. If you subscribe to the channel, I will be happy. But if you decide to talk to me in the comments about this story, I will be even happier. Stay tuned for my next story on this channel.